It's official. After an initial leak that hit this morning, THQ Nordic has confirmed during their 2022 game showcase that a new Alone in the Dark game is in development. And some are even saying it could go toe-to-toe with the Resident Evil remakes. I think that's a pretty bold claim, but let's take a look. The trailer showed off during the event comes with a content warning for maddening and/or haunting images, and they kind of aren't playing around with the initial seconds showing off a creepy little girl doing unsettling, creepy little girl stuff. Simply titled Alone in the Dark, the game has been deemed a remake, but it's actually more of a reboot or reimagining with an original story that is said to incorporate characters, places, and thematic elements from the first 3 games in the Alone in the Dark series. If you're unfamiliar with Alone in the Dark, the first game was released in 1992 and is often credited with being the very first survival horror game, or at the very least, a genesis for the genre. The game was set in 1920s Louisiana, and you could pick between a male or female protagonist, Edward Carnby or Emily Hartwood, who then had to escape a haunted mansion filled with supernatural enemies like zombies and weird rat-like monsters. There were multiple sequels and even a reboot in 2008 for PS3 and Xbox 360, which had some interesting ideas, but ultimately it failed critically with low and mixed reviews. The newly announced remake will take the game back to its roots, returning to 1920s Louisiana and a town called Derceto, where Emily Hartwood's uncle has gone missing. The official THQ press release reads, "You can either slip into the role of private investigator Edward Carnby to lend a helping hand while uncovering the mystery, or play as Emily Hartwood herself as she embarks on a journey to Derceto Manor, a home of the mentally ill where something is lurking. You'll encounter strange residents, nightmarish realms, dangerous monsters, and ultimately uncover a plot of rising evil." The press release provides additional context explaining, "The reimagination of the original trilogy aims to scare you to the bone and returns to infamous locations with a whole new story and mythical places to explore. Alone in the Dark features a noir setting with classical Lovecraftian horror elements where the familiar meets the surreal." If all of that sounds interesting to you, you might be happy to learn about the developers behind the game. The studio working on the remake is Pieces Interactive, who made Magicka 2 and a ton of Titan Quest expansions, so maybe a little to prove here, but there are 2 additional key talents working on the game worth noting. Mikael Hedberg is writing on the project and previously worked on Soma and Amnesia: The Dark Descent, 2 very notable and revered survival horror games. THQ Nordic is also bringing on Guy Davis to do art for the game, who is a known creature designer and comic book artist who has collaborated with Guillermo del Toro multiple times in the past. According to THQ, the game has been in development since 2019 and will be available on PC, Xbox Series X and S, and PS5, but the release date as of now is undetermined. As for the rest of THQ Nordic's 2022 showcase, here is a very brief rundown of the games that were shown. Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed got a new trailer, which is an Unreal 4 remake of the original Destroy All Humans 2. Gothic, an old 2001 RPG known for its living open world and creative setting, is also getting a remake. And if that wasn't enough nostalgia, THQ also announced Jagged Alliance 3, which is a turn-based tactics game where you'll be put in charge of building up a mercenary army to rescue the president of a fictional country from a paramilitary group called the Legion. For reference, Jagged Alliance 2 came out in 1999. But THQ didn't stop the revival of old properties there. They are also making Outcast 2, which appears to be a direct sequel to the original Outcast, a sci-fi action-adventure game also originally released in 1999. There were also some new and original IPs as well. Recreation is an open-world arcade racing game that will allow players to create their own tracks. Stuntfest World Tour is an elimination-based stunt show for 18 players. The Valiant is a tactical RTS set in medieval times, which THQ claims is a new take on the genre. Then there's Tempest Rising, which looks like a return to classic RTS games like the original StarCraft. AEW Fight Forever got its first official gameplay trailer, and it was announced that the game will be playable at Gamescom next week. SpongeBob SquarePants: The Cosmic Shake was also revealed, and it looks like everything you would want out of a 3D platforming SpongeBob game, if anybody's nostalgic for that. And it's got all the original voice cast as well. Then finally, the show concluded with a tease for a new South Park game in collaboration with South Park Digital Studios. A lot of these returning IPs are pretty wild to see, but not entirely surprising considering the Embracer Group, who owns THQ Nordic, has been buying up basically every IP they can get their hands on for the last few years. Not including Handy Games or the pending acquisition of Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal, THQ revealed in a slide at the end of the show that it has 43 games in development, 25 of which have not yet been announced. To list off all of the IPs Embracer Group now owns, and specifically which ones are under THQ Nordic directly, would take an entire video on its own, I am completely sure, so I think this is a pretty good place to stop. Let me know in the comments which games from the THQ Nordic Showcase you're excited about. Thank you so much for watching, and for more video game news and updates, please stay tuned right here to Inside Gaming.